Bernie Sanders did a town hall. Does anyone have a link to the full town hall?
Watch some stolen content, chat.
And good evening. We are live from the nation's capital, where we just witnessed a historically tumultuous day for the United States economy. Welcome to CNN's Town Hall with Independent Senator Bernie Sanders. I'm Anderson Cooper. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has waged a sweeping effort to reshape the federal government, America's role in the world, and the global economy. Many Democrats have been frustrated by their party's efforts to counter the president's agenda and regroup after their losses in November. Tonight, as President Trump approaches 100 days in office, we're talking with one of the country's highest-profile progressive leaders, Senator Bernie Sanders, who's been on a nationwide tour, talking with voters about his ideas for the path forward. We've assembled a group of voters, mostly Democrats and independents, also some Republicans, who have questions for Senator Sanders about the direction of the country. To find our questionnaires, we reached out to political and business groups, universities, and other civic organizations. Tonight's participants will be asking their own questions, selected by CNN to cover a variety of topics. You may see them holding a piece of paper that has their question on it. It's a question they have come up with. It has not been edited in any way by CNN. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont.
Yeah, but they probably had to approve it.
Thanks for being here.
Why is crypto up, though? Somebody... Oh, okay. Sorry, my chat got paused. I was like, I thought I already answered this question. It's not. But no, my chat was just scrolled. I was like, what the fuck? Why are you asking me again? Crypto is crashing too. Dow falls at the... Oh, wow. Look at that, chat. Exactly what I said would happen. Oh, no, 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 no.
We got a lot of questions on tariffs, and I'm going to get to one from the audience in just a moment. But I do want to start off. President Trump just put a 90-day pause on a new round of sweeping tariffs. He's keeping...
Okay, before we get to that, because I know tariffs are everybody's mind, I think we all want this to be a serious discussion about some of the most important issues facing America. And as you indicated, I've been running all over the country. And what I hope we can do tonight is do something pretty radical. And that is tell the truth. It's a radical idea here in Washington, D.C. And that is to really take a look together, all of us together, no matter what your political point of view may be, about what is in fact going on in this country today. And as you indicated, I have been running all over the country. And I got to tell you that there is a lot of anxiety out there. There's a lot of fear. People in the richest country in the history of the world are wondering why 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck.
What if the abundance lives on CNN was saying the oligarchs need to save us from Trump and his tariffs? Hey, chat, was I right about abundance? Hey, chat, was I right about that too? One of the things that really, like, at a certain point, what can I hate even saying, like, people think that I like saying I was right. I actually don't. The only reason I'm forced to say it is because if you don't say it online, then nobody will notice. And the reason why nobody will notice is because the people that get boosted are the people not that are right, but are useful for the capitalist class. If you're Matty Iglesias, you're going to get boosted non-fucking stop. If you're the abundance libs, you're going to get boosted non-fucking stop. Why? Because the billionaires want you out there saying the shit that you're saying. The stuff that I'm saying, they don't want you to hear. It doesn't matter if it's empirically verified, vetted, proven over and over and over and over again. Being correct doesn't matter in our media environment because it's being useful for the elite. Here's the clip.
Tonight, we're going to hear from Senator Bernie Sanders in a CNN town hall. He's been drawing huge crowds around the country in his Fighting Oligarchy tour. He is from a very different wing of the party than you. What is it that...
And by the way, chat, this is why I like Hasan. Like, I like Hasan because I agree with Hasan. And I, honest to God, really think that if somebody doesn't like Hasan and they're on the left, they're actually stupid. They're legitimately a dumb piece of shit. I don't care what justifications they have. They're legitimately stupid. Your enemy isn't China. It's global capital. What, is stealing my entire moveset?
All of you guys know what paycheck to paycheck is?
My entire flow,
Right.
exactly.
Now, I grew up in a family that was living paycheck to paycheck. And one of the manifestations of living paycheck to paycheck is working class people in America now live 6 years shorter lives than the rich. Anyone have an idea why that is? Poverty and what else? Stress. When you are living paycheck to paycheck and you're wondering whether you can pay the rent, whether you can get your kid to a doctor when you need to, that eats away at your mind and it eats away at your body and you die younger. And what I have seen, Anderson, all over this country is people living under incredible stress, wondering why in the richest country in the world they can't afford health care, they can't afford childcare, why the cost of housing is soaring. And in the midst of all of that, while 60% of our people are living paycheck.
I left Marxist RA because they kept calling Hassan a Nazi. Basically, what happens is it's like the situation is one where what are you trying to get from your politics, right? I don't need to be publicly thought of as being right all the time. That's not what I'm trying to get out of my politics. What I'm trying to get is to convince as many people as possible to pull in the same direction to make this world a better place, literally. And sometimes I have small goals, sometimes I have big goals, but I always try to give my analysis as openly and as fairly as I can. That's what I do. And I actually, as I'm getting older, I'm having less patience for certain childish shit, and if your modus operandi is you want to come in here into these progressive spaces, left-wing spaces, socialist spaces, and just be like, everyone here is racist, I don't have time for you. If you want to come in here and say we shouldn't have any leaders, I don't have any time for you. If you're going to come in here and be like, no, I am not going to try to orient myself toward the masses. I'm going to stand apart and show you how I understand that Bernie Sanders is a sellout, right? If your entire plan is that's not a plan. I have a lot of disagreements with Bernie Sanders, and I have a lot of disagreements with Hassan and AOC and all these other people, but there is a fundamental divide. And either you're helping us exacerbate that divide or you're helping to disarm the people on this side of the line. The biggest example I have for me is the stupidity of abandoning Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman during their primaries. There was a lot of people out there that were saying that the thing to do during those primaries was to protest AOC and Bernie Sanders rallying for some of the most pro-Palestinian Congress people. The only way we're going to stop the genocide in Gaza is not by the protest leadership having the most perfect of takes. It's actually going to be when regular normies start getting pissed off about this shit and start putting pressure on normie Democrats to stop supporting it. That's actually what's going to end it. Now, I'm not saying that we need to change our movement or we need to change our messaging. But what we need to do is actually build something that's constructive and tactical in some degree. We have to be strategic in some degree. And it's always a question of like how far, I think a lot of people, whenever they hear me talking about this stuff, they go, oh, this sounds like you sound like you're saying that we should vote blue no matter who. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm saying that sometimes you vote for the lesser evil, and sometimes the evil is not lesser enough. And we have to make collective decisions on that. Right? It's not based on my personal take. It has to be a collective take. And I want us to build institutions that help us form collective demands, not individual demands. I don't care how smart you are. I don't even care that you're right, that Bernie Sanders and AOC have made terrible votes and terrible political decisions. You're right about it. Part of the reasons why they're making those terrible decisions is because they're individual people and not figureheads of movements. And this is the problem I'm seeing with like basically every form of DSA. Like every caucus in DSA sucks. I said this before and I'll say it again. Every caucus in DSA sucks. Now, it doesn't mean that there's things I agree with in this caucus. There's things I agree with in this caucus, but all of them are shit. You know who are especially shit? The ones that are just tailing the Democrats. They're also fucking garbage. You know who is also shit? The people that think that, our best, the thing that we should be doing the most is trying to target AOC for like censure and shit. And it's like, both of those sides are stupid. AOC is not somebody who came out of DSA and won because of DSA. She won because of different factors. And we should recognize that. So we're not going to be able to claim claim AOC and force her to do what we want because she's independent of us, just like Bernie Sanders is independent of us. It doesn't mean they can't be allies. We just have to recognize what our position is relative to them. What is my solution? We need to get politicians that are dependent on us. We need to get politicians that are going to cleave to a party line. Instead of yelling and screaming about how AOC and Bernie are sellouts, recognize that they are temporary allies. How about we form people and politicians that are not just temporary allies, but actually do spring from what we're trying to do? I think part of what makes DSA so problematic and shitty, even though I like it a lot, I like DSA, I like PSL, I have disagreements with them. I am mostly a platformist, but what makes them shitty is because they aren't actually trying to be a party. And like, I understand why they're not trying to be a party. I get it, because third parties are automatically losers in most of this country. But the idea of we don't have any coherence. And I think coherence is needed in this time. That's why the left was growing so well when Bernie Sanders was running for president both times, because we had to coalesce around something. So you were either pro Bernie or you weren't. It was a very simple binary. Either you bite your tongue on the things you disagree and you were behind Bernie, or you were not behind Bernie. And that was a very clarifying moment. We don't have that now. We don't have that movement or that issue or that cause to unite around and therefore attract more people. We have 80 different cacophonous voices yelling different shit. I don't see a value in that right now. And we like that the crisis we have is I just don't think our figureheads, Bernie Sanders and AOC, are appropriately pugilistic. And so that's why we have such gnashing of teeth, because they're not fighting well.
The paycheck. Why is it that three people on top now own more wealth than the bottom half of American society?
Are you confusing PSL? Yeah, no, I know that, Weatherboxer. I know. I like PSL. I like PSL.
Mr. Musk going all over Washington, D.C., dismantling Social Security and the Veterans Administration. So those are some of the issues.
We got a lot of questions. We got a lot of questions about that and talk about
my feeling about Zoran. Here's my feeling about Zoran. Can I say something out loud that I hope doesn't ruin your hopes? I want Zoran to win. I do. I would love him to win mayor of New York. I think the odds are that he probably doesn't win because of like a name recognition gap and things like that. He probably doesn't win this time around. However, but he might. Like, it's worth fighting for. He's got a good shot, right? The momentum is behind him. He's got a lot of money. He's campaigning like a crazy person. He might win this. I'm not saying he's definitely not going to. I'm just saying the odds are that it's going to be a tough climb to come from, you know, relative obscurity to win. The thing about running for office is there's offices every fucking year. He could then run for Congress. He could then run for Senate. Like, we want to build up these people up, make them national figures. And so, you know, mayor of New York is that's like running for governor in a state, honestly. It's a very tough thing to do. You know, it's going to be hard to beat Cuomo just because of name recognition alone and Cuomo's connection to the most corrupt elements of the Democratic Party and Republican Party. It's always tough to overcome that kind of name recognition gap. Zoran might be able to pull it off. But even if he doesn't win, he's now a national political figure. And that's what we need to be building up. And wow, the crash is accelerating, chat. The crash is accelerating. How's our friend over at Tesla doing? Come on, just go back to, just crash back down to 235. Come on. Come on. Come on, make me a quick 10 grand. Come on. Come on. Anyway, I don't know if I'm even making sense. What I'm trying to say is, we should be involved in these anti-oligarch protests, which reminds me, chat, this weekend, if you are in Los Angeles, I want you to come. We are doing the Bernie Sanders oligarchy thing in Los Angeles, RSVP. Making sure I'm not getting doxxed. I am going to this. I was invited by DSA, LA, and other people to go to this thing. I may or may not stream it. I haven't decided. If you are in Southern California, you have to go. This is not a request. This is an order. He said calls. I didn't buy calls on Tesla. Are you insane? What the fuck? I would never buy calls on Tesla. Are you insane? I might have misspoke, but what the fuck? I would never buy calls. What the fuck? Maybe I said sell calls, which is basically, I would never calls. What the fuck? You didn't misspeak. You said buy puts. Well, I didn't say any of that. I said this is not a financial. Anyway. This is not financial. Anyway, guys, sign up for this. And I'm going to, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set up something for tomorrow's stream where if you're going to go to the thing, you could put in information. I want to see as many of you there. It's on Saturday at 9 a.m. So normally when you watch my stream, you're going to be at the Bernie Sanders rally in Los Angeles. If you're in California, I don't give a fuck if you're in goddamn San Francisco. Get on the high-speed rail that connects San Francisco and LA that was built by, you know, neoliberals. Right? We have that high-speed rail train, right? Oh. So come hang out. We have musical guests. It'll be fun.
stress. There's obviously been a lot of stress just related to these tariffs, people's retirement accounts, if they're lucky enough to have money saved up for retirements. The president's keeping a 10% tariff on most countries, 25% on some goods from Canada and Mexico, 125% now on China. Has all of this chaos permanently damaged our economy, our reputation in the world?
Look, I live in Burlington, Vermont. You should all come up and visit us sometimes. We're a great city, a great state. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. Throughout the history of the United States and Canada, we have had a very warm, positive relationship. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. And right now, I got to tell you that in Canada, when you have a president of the United States who goes out of his way to insult the prime minister, he calls him governor. Oh, by the way, you're a Canadian. We're going to make you the 51st state. Canadians, who I love, they're great people. They're not coming into Vermont anymore. They're not coming into America. They're boycotting American goods. Similar to our friends in Mexico and all over the world. These are our allies. We fought World War II. We defeated Nazism, fighting with our friends in UK and France, throughout Europe. And now they're saying, what in God's name is going on with the United States of America? So the idea that this nation, which all of us want to see as what did Ronald Reagan call it, the city on the mountain?
Shining city on a hill.
City on a hill, close, all right. I don't quote Reagan all that often.
He was actually not. Shining City on a Hill is not Ronald Reagan, actually. Ronald Reagan is not smart enough to create such a fucking turn of phrase. That was actually a pilgrim from the 16 motherfucking hundreds. Okay, no, Reagan did not coin Shining City on a Hill.
But we want to be a model to the world. We want people to look at us and say we want to be.
Will we have a meetup or anything like that for chatters who attend Saturday? Yes. I need to figure it out, though. We will have a meetup. I'll figure it out.
Like the United States. Not, oh, God, United States, what are they doing? So
maybe I'll stream it.
Our first questioner. This is Nate Gilsaw, legal administrative specialist at the Department of Justice from Burke, Virginia. He's a Republican. Nate, welcome.
Thank you. Senator Sanders, you have consistently opposed trade agreements like NAFTA and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, citing their detrimental effects on American workers. Recently, President Trump imposed broad reciprocal tariffs on numerous countries, leading to significant market disruptions and international backlash. How do you assess the effectiveness of such tariff strategies in protecting American jobs, and what alternative measures would you advocate to ensure fair trade without escalating global trade tensions?
Thanks a lot, Nate. And Nate,
good question.
Quite right. Not only did I vote against a Clinton-inspired NAFTA and PNTR with China, I helped lead the effort against it. And I think you know why. What I saw and wanted to prevent was the decimation of communities all over this country where working people had decent jobs, often with unions, in a factory. And what these trade agreements in essence said to corporate America, hey, no problem, you can throw American workers out on the street, you can go to Mexico, you can go to China and hire people for pennies an hour. And I thought that that was a horrible idea. It was a horrible idea. It resulted in the loss of thousands and thousands of factories in America, the loss of millions of jobs. So to answer Nate's question, look, what I think is tariffs used selectively are a good idea if they're going to protect American jobs. But to arbitrarily, out of nowhere, come up with a tariff that they can't even justify or explain to virtually every country on earth is absolutely counterproductive.
Those tariffs are aimed at part, and the president talks about bringing manufacturing jobs to America. The White House talked about iPhones being made here in America. Some economists have said that it would cost thousands of extra dollars to buy an iPhone. Is that realistic?
I think I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is the immediate harm is going to be very significant. And it is going to, I was just in Target the other day buying something, and I looked around there. Virtually all of those products sold in stores like Target are going to see significant increases in prices if Trump gets his way with tariffs. That's going to hurt working people a whole lot.
This is Marge Watchorn, a manager at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. She's worked with the federal government for 30 years. Thank you for your service. Thanks. Marge is a Democrat from Ellicott City, Maryland. Marge?
Senator, what would you say to federal employees who are concerned about the careless workforce cuts being effectuated by Elon Musk and Doge?
I want to say two things about that. First of all, thank you and your colleagues for your years of service. The vast majority of federal employees are trying their best to do the jobs that have to be done to protect the American people, and I thank you all very much for that. The idea that Mr. Musk goes around and with a chainsaw, I mean, that is his metaphor, a chainsaw, slashing jobs all over the place, telling people based on nothing that they have poor performance records, throwing them out into the street is outrageous. But I want to say something else, above and beyond. And by the way, I was just on the floor a few hours ago. They have decided in their brilliance, and I suspect this is a Musk initiative, to lay off, they have a proposal to lay off 83.
Could see a small bounce right here. It's hitting a support point from yesterday. Bro. We are in a market with absolutely, there's no, don't think technicals or anything matters at this point. Our market, our economy has been fucked. And then Donald Trump is going to have to revoke the China tariffs. That's the thing that's the only thing that's going to stop this, is if Donald Trump revokes the China tariffs. That's the only thing that's going to eventually stop this. They literally can't do what he's saying he's going to do. Like, it's just not a thing. You understand how much like Americans rely on China? We're talking about 500, 600 billion dollars of goods. That's like almost like like how much do you think is ever like actually is sold in retail stores? Like, we're talking significant chunks of everything you see.
1,000 workers at the Veterans Administration. Got that? So we made a commitment to the men and women who put their lives on the line that we were going to provide them with the best quality health care that we could. And generally speaking, I know in my state, veterans are very proud of the health care they get in White River Junction, Vermont, and that's true in many places in this country. But arbitrarily throwing 83,000 workers in the Veterans Administration, lowering the quality of care for our veterans, delaying the kind of the time in which they're going to get their benefits is a total outrage. I want to add one point to that. I want everybody to think about this. Most people, we have millions of federal employees, most people are not federal employees. And I think many people are saying, wow, that's outrageous. I really feel for these federal employees thrown out on the street. But I want you to think about this. If Musk can do this to federal employees, some of whom are in unions, some of whom work for years, what do you think he's going to be doing when artificial intelligence and robotics comes for your job? Guess what? The job you have today ain't going to be here in 10 or 15 years. And you think Musk and his friends are saying, oh my goodness, how do we protect American workers from the explosion in technology that we're seeing? They don't give a damn about you. If this is what they could do to federal employees, think about what they could do to people in the private sector. So bottom line there is I am not a Luddite. I think technology has many positive things to say. But we have got to understand that new technology, AI, robotics, has got to work for working people, not just for the billionaires and Mr. Musk.
There's a lot of talk about, from the Doge team about, or from Elon Musk, about waste, fraud, and abuse and what they're finding. Have you seen much evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse? Because what they put on their wall of receipts, some of the top items, the biggest savings they allege to have implemented, turned out to be mistakes or just lies.
Look, am I going to sit here and tell anybody in America that the United States government doesn't have a bureaucracy and there isn't waste? Of course there is. And do we all, you're Republican, conservative, progressive, I was mayor of the city of Burlington. One of the things I'm proud of is we saved money. We made the city more efficient. People pay taxes. They want to make sure.
Tesla just broke through 250. That was a point that it was kind of bouncing off 250 for a while. So Tesla's now down 8% today. Yesterday it went up, like, what was it up? It started the day at like 230, then it went up to 270, and now it's crashed down to 260. So 250. So it's gave up half of what it gained yesterday. Incredible. Mike, all it takes is one Trump tweet for stocks to bounce. I legitimately do think you're right. I've been saying this the entire time. Right now, we have a period of extreme volatility. That's the only thing you can count on right now is stocks are going to, they're basically shit coins. They're basically shit coins. And like, you know, it is what it is. And Donald Trump is going, you know, and the reason why the stock market is gyrating like this is because of Donald Trump's idiotic tariffs. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't gyrate like this wildly without the idiotic tariffs. So if Donald Trump takes the tariffs off, then people are going to rush back into the market. But if he doesn't, then when people price in the actual results of what he's doing, it's going to crash the economy. So the stock market needs to crash, because the price earning multiple is way too high during a recession. Like, we have a stock market that is priced like it is what's the best way to put it? A growing economy, basically, where earnings are going to be expanding. That's not true. We're looking at a stagflationary result if these policies are actually implemented. I don't think Donald Trump is actually going to do the after what I saw yesterday, I don't think he's actually going to be able to do the tariffs on China. I just don't think he can do it. I think Xi is a better poker player than Donald Trump. I think Xi is more secure than Donald Trump. I think Xi has the Chinese people behind him. Donald Trump does not have the American people behind him. Americans are soft consumer treatlerites. There's no fucking way we could win any war with China, let alone a trade war, a physical war, a nuclear war. It doesn't fucking matter. The United States is not going to be able to beat China face to face. And the more that Americans come to recognize that, the better we're all going to be. The one thing about the United States is that it is one of the most arrogant and hubristic nations to ever live. Like, if you study history, there are few nations as hubristic as the United States. Like, we're already down 1,400. 1,400! We went up 3,000 and we crashed 1,400. What is this, a shit coin? I mean, what the fuck is going on with this shit? It's crazy. Today's close of 9.52% of the S&P matches the eighth best day in history. If you go and look at the quote best stock days in history, COVID crash recovery, Great Depression recovery, dead cat bounces. These are all Great Depression dead cat bounces, COVID dead cat bounces, and Great Recession great dead cat bounces. These are like the worst recessions and depressions in American history. That's what yesterday was in. The whole stock market up and down broke my cousin out of libertarianism because I'm going to help you out, chat. The stock market isn't rational. Markets are not rational.
Money goes to where it's supposed to go. We can do better than we're doing right now.
Is there a contribution Elon Musk could make to the federal government that you would be?
I think I don't think he can do it. But do I think as a nation, as a Congress, as an administration, we got to sit down and say, how do we make break through the bureaucracy and make the government more efficient? Yes.
Oh, sorry about that, chat. I meant to, I had to mute my mic.
Trump gets up in his State of the Union, and all of you, many of you have heard it, and he says, oh my goodness, millions and millions of senior citizens, 150 years age, 200 years of age. Remember that? Oh, they're all getting Social Security benefits. It's a lie. A total, absolute lie. I mean, according to the new guy who is going to become the Social Security Administrator, Trump's own appointee, well over 99% of the benefits owed to people on Social Security were earned by the people on Social Security. It's just another lie. So a lot of what they're doing is, am I going to tell you the Veterans Administration is the most efficient organization in the world? No, it's not. But you don't simply, with a chainsaw, if you like, get rid of 83,000 people, then say, oh, it's not going to impact the quality of care that our veterans receive.
I want you to meet Yasmin Chestnut, a student at Howard University and Democrat. Yasmin, welcome.
Aside from Senator Booker, who broke the filibuster record, what are the elected Democratic officials proactively doing to ensure that Trump's agenda is not being completed, besides holding up signs during President Trump's congressional address and attending rallies?
Well, look, there are, within the Democratic caucus, I am an independent, and I am very proud of the fact that I'm the longest serving independent in the history of the United States. I caucus with the Democrats and always have. And within the Democratic caucus in the House and the Senate, you have people with different political persuasions. There are some of us who from day one have understood that we've got to stand up and rally the American people to fight against this horrendous agenda, which at the end of the day is really significantly about giving massive tax breaks to the top 1%. All right? So what Trump and the Republicans are saying is, hey, let's cut Medicaid by some $880 billion, and let's use those savings to give tax breaks to the very wealthiest people in this country. So to answer your question, Jasmine, there are, some people, I think, what I have been trying to do, what I think the best solution is, and I'm working with people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others, is to rally the American people to tell their members of Congress, guess what? You want to get reelected, you're not going to vote to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs the working class people need.
You talked about concerns about a kleptocracy in the United States. This morning, President Trump posted on social media that it was, quote, a great time to buy stocks. A few hours later, he announced a pause on tariffs, which sent the market skyrocketing. Your colleague, Senator Adam Schiff, says Congress should investigate whether Trump and his inner circle engage in insider trading. Do you agree?
I noticed that, and that's just one of another outrageous things. Imagine, I don't know for a fact, but would I be surprised if there were people who hours before knew exactly what Trump was going to do in rescinding his tariff proposals, understanding that the stock market would soar and you make huge amounts of money? Would I be shocked if we learned about that in the days to come? No, I would not.
Does that announcement that he gave cover to anybody who did buy stocks?
Well, what it does do, look, if you know 2 hours earlier that the stock market's going to go, what are you going to do? You're going to buy a hell of a lot of stock. You can invest in the stock market. But it's not only that. I mean, you got a president of the United States who is now working to give government cover to crypto. And whose family is involved in crypto, makes money by selling coins, crypto coins. Anybody can contribute, which is a direct line to the president. So, I have serious problems about all that.
This is Yasmin Townsend. She's currently DC's Teacher of the Year and is one of the 4 finalists to be National Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. She's a Democrat from Hyatt.
Like, do you think Donald Trump is going to come out and say we're not doing China tariffs? Do you think he's going to come out and say we're not doing China tariffs? Also, does anybody have a link to CNN? Check Discord DMs. What's up? EU and the UAE have just announced plans for a free trade agreement. Okay. White House just clarified that the tariffs on China are actually 145%, not 125%. Yeah, I saw that. He's going to wait for it to tank more so they can buy, and then he'll reverse. I mean, like, Is it gonna work though? But I agree with you. I kind of like, I don't want to act like I understand what's gonna happen, but Donald Trump is so transparently stupid and corrupt. And now that he's been given the power to like manipulate the stock market, he's not gonna hesitate to manipulate the stock market. Chat, just hypothetically, if I made 100% profit on a bet in one day, hypothetically, would you take that profit, or would you take half off? Just hypothetically, if you say, for example, shorted Tesla, hypothetically, and it was up 100% in one day because you shorted it during yesterday's climb, which is actually what I did. During yesterday's thing, I shorted Tesla below 260. If hypothetically, I made 100% profit in one day, hypothetically, this is a hypothetical thing. I am kind of tempted to take my money off the table. Okay, I'm not up 100%. I'm up 63%. I'm up 63%, not 100%. I lied. That's not even close to 100%. Well, I'm up 132% today because when I shorted, it ended up going down from there because it was still spiking. I shorted it in the middle of the spike. I shorted it for below 260, then it went up to 270. So I ended the day down quite a bit, and then now I'm up 132% from yesterday. That's an expensive put, man. Why? No, I didn't buy the 260 put. I'm just saying. I'll be good. Michael, read my last message. Hypothetically, this is not real. This is fake money. Hypothetically. Does expiry happen before or after? After? I'm not insane. What the fuck? If the only guaranteed thing is volatility, would the play be to inverse play VIX when it's at the extremes? I kind of think so, but the thing is the volatility could rise again in the immediate short term. I do think, like, again, this is not financial advice. I don't know what's going to happen. There's two things that I have conviction right now. There's two things I have that are conviction right now. One, that Donald Trump is going to fluctuate wildly in his policies because he gets scared. The second thing that I believe is that Tesla is a bankrupt company that's worthless, and that it's only a matter of time before it dies. Now, those are the only two things that I believe. Now, maybe Tesla will not completely go bankrupt, but I think that objectively, Tesla is the most overvalued company in the history of the American stock market since fucking Enron. Okay, the Cybertruck was one of the biggest flops of all time. Oh, Chad, I'm getting there. I might put in a sell. I might take some of this off. As someone who works a lot with Tesla building parts of their charging network, the only thing that's valuable about Tesla is the charging network. Everything else, they're subpar on. So That's why I was willing to pull the trigger against Tesla when they were spiking, because I think the company sucks. Everybody hates Elon Musk now. Nobody even wants to 244? Holy fuck. Holy shit. Are we going to end up back at 234, Chad? Do you think? Do you think? Word on Wall Street is the stop losses are breaking. Oh, look out below. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump coming out and going, okay, maybe we're not going to do the tariffs. Like, that's the thing that could always happen. Is like, I think that Donald Trump legitimately just looks at the stock market. And I told you this yesterday. Oh my God. I told you this yesterday. Oh, this is so funny. Oh, this is so funny. I should have bet more money. I just didn't want to. I couldn't do it. I was like, okay, this is too risky. What if I just do one bet just to test, just to see if my assumptions are right? I did, you know, and it's like, oh, shit. Well, looks like my assumptions were right. Oh my God, it went down another 400. Jesus. Holy fucking hell. But the only thing I truly believe in is the volatility. After all, he claimed 75 countries came to make a deal. That's 75 positive tweets he can make. That's not positive tweets. China is our #2 trading partner after Mexico. He just slapped a 10% tariff on Mexico and a 145% tariff on China. So in other words, the American economy, that's well over $1 trillion of goods that are going to have massive tariffs on them. And then he also threw 10% tariffs on everybody. Like, yes, it's not as bad as it was the day before yesterday when it was crashing even harder, but it's still insane. It's still 25% on Canada and Mexico. Wait, really? Oh my God. You see my point? But it's paused for USMCA compliant goods. That's the thing, though. We have no idea what's going on. The other thing that I think people don't understand is the United States of America doesn't have the revenue agents to run these tariffs. We don't have the port inspectors. We don't have the revenue agents. We don't have the ability to like even take care of all this shit. Like, we don't have the government workers to actually enforce the tariffs that he's trying to claim to do like, there's like, what the fuck are we even talking about here? How did anybody buy this market yesterday? It's insane. Somebody link me CNBC. Somebody link me CNBC Live, please. I'm actually mad at myself. Okay, I want to be honest with you, chat. I was gonna bet even more against Tesla, but I opened up an individual investment account, but I guess the money hadn't cleared yet or something, so it wouldn't let me do it. So I did it with a different account I had that didn't have a ton of money in it. And what's funny is it's currently up 73%. So I'm like, when it hits 100%, maybe I will sell half and just let the rest ride and see what happens. Mike, Trump reversed the other tariffs with a clear rhetoric. They are kissing my ass. They want to negotiate, but the tariffs on China are different because Xi is raising the stakes every time, and Trump is very much on the anti-China rhetoric. How would he try to save face now? That's exactly my point. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a cult. So when he does one thing one day and the exact opposite the next day, his cult says there's no contradiction. So confused on how shorting works. Well, could you quickly explain? No. The chatters in this community that have the money to do this already know what I'm talking about. If you don't know how to do this, I'm not going to teach you. And I also don't want you to go to anybody who's willing to teach you. It's the equivalent of handing a loaded gun to a 5-year-old. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have the resources. No, I'm not going to tell you. If I lose this money, it will not make a difference for me at all in my life.
But you know how I feel about this. They're animals, Jim. There is an historic opportunity here. Don't believe them. Don't trust them. They are dying. Let them die.
I saw a guy lose $300,000 in options trading during the surge yesterday. Yes, because don't option trade. It's gambling. Honestly, buying regular shit is gambling at this point. Okay, we bounced off 243 chat. The stock market is finding a floor. With Trump at the helm, it's all gambling. There's only one thing that I know, is that Donald Trump managed to bankrupt not one, not two, but 3 casinos. If you could bankrupt the casinos, the 2-hour drive from New York City, you are a fucking loser. Trump's trade crash out is similar to the H3 crash out. They're all in, and the only off ramp is to admit they're stupid, something a narcissistic person cannot do. Donald Trump will claim, like, you know, eventually China will call up Trump and be like, okay, they'll give them some token concession, and then Donald Trump will claim to have fixed trade with China, and he will do it to save face so that he could save the recovering fucking, you know. That's it. I saw a guy who lost his entire savings and traded $5K on margin in his dad's name. No, I don't want CNN. Why the... Yeah.
Gets well, you know, like Mohammed El-Arian, for example, who joined me on Closing Bell, that in his mind, the Fed wasn't that far away from having to do something. Whatever the something is, that's not a bullish environment.
Stabilizing the Treasury market is historically not bullish. Yeah. I would also point out that 45 basis point swing in the 10-year is maniacal. Like, this is not, again, I want to say, oh, it's a pullback, just pick your favorite names and load up. I think you should be a buyer if you have a really long-term time horizon. You should not expect that the buys you make today will necessarily be rewarded a week from now. It's just a different environment. A 45 basis point swing in 3 days is the most that we've seen since
Always wrecked. I would take some off the table.
environment, a 45 basis point swing in 3 days is the most that we've seen since 2022, which is another legit bear market. We've only seen that 7 other times going back to the year 2000. And on every single instance, the S&P was down 25% or worse. That we've seen that. So again, that is a classic feature of when the S&P is down big, you get those huge swings in the 10-year. Now, I want to take it a step further and say, okay, great, we have the carnage.
Yes.
I just don't know if it's gone on long enough to really register.
You've got the market down 15% from highs, 18% for the NASDAQ. You've got stocks that are down 30, 40, 50% from their highs.
Agreed.
So I would say, yeah, there's things to be concerned about, but you've got to look at opportunities for the long term.
But here's the problem.
But it was already a bubble. It was a bubble in a growing economy. Now we are in a situation where we're in a recession and we're going to go to a trade war with the #1 economy in the fucking world that produces half of our shit. It'd be one thing if Donald Trump was just sitting there like a lump on a log doing nothing, but he's trying to get us to do an international trade war against China. We have a current hot war in Ukraine. We have a hot war in Europe. We're moving stealth bombers to, the Diego Garcia to bomb Iran. There's a genocide going in Gaza. The Houthis have closed off the Red Sea. Like, this is not normal fucking times, dummy.
But at that moment, it made sense to add a little bit on an incremental basis. And I think from our perspective, again, being incremental about what you do is important in this kind of environment, and kind of picking your spots. And as bad as it feels on those down days, I think it's worthwhile to go ahead and add a little bit.
I like that approach because there's a lot of humility there. And you were saying, like, I want to own the stock at this price.
Yep.
I acknowledge the possibility it'll sell at a lower price in 3 weeks, and I don't care. And if you end up being at the bottom, great. And your biggest regret is I should have bought more.
Maybe that's
we
kind
could
of
all live with that.
Does your Nike move fall into that category of, the stock's down a lot?
Yeah.
It obviously has the China exposure. Everything, by the way,
yeah.
I mean, almost everything's down.
Right.
Okay, we know that today. But stuff with China exposure is down a bunch.
Right.
Starbucks, Apple's down a lot.
Can you explain how the U.S. could be a holder of its own debt? It's an accounting fiction. Basically, the Social Security Administration and surpluses were given to the general fund, and in exchange for the Social Security Administration surpluses, they got treasury bonds. And so basically what that means is the Social Security Administration has a claim on the general funds as a bondholder, similar to all the other bondholders, right? So that's what's happening, okay? Now, the United States of America has this really cool thing called the ability to print its own currency. So it can never default. However, the value of the underlying currency can inflate. So that means that, sure, we're never going to default unless we decide intentionally to default. But the value of the dollar could certainly decline. And I feel like this is kind of the situation we're in. Is I feel like we're in an asset bubble, the likes of which it's going to be obvious in hindsight. Like, can someone explain to me how a 2-bedroom house built in 1973 is worth $2 million because it is in Los Angeles and it's not even in an especially nice neighborhood? That's all bubble shit. That's all easy money, 30-year mortgages. It's meaningless. It's all land value speculation. It is an asset bubble, the likes of which we've never seen. And it needs to eat shit.
Lives will change, and it's very nice to say that in front of a camera. But I think when Donald Trump spent yesterday, number one, listening to Jamie Dimon on television, effectively.
This is my feeling, chat. This is my general feeling. Imagine being China and being confronted with morons of this magnitude every turn. Our lottery-esque system of wealth redistribution elevates so many mediocre people to billionaire status who then speak with unearned confidence. We are such an embarrassment. We built the global system of trade. It made these morons fantastically rich, and now they cry about it all day on this app. In China, in general, you have to be smart and talented to get to the top. In the United States, you have to go to the right school and have the right roommate. This particular guy couldn't pull off a sneak attack on Herbalife. He's going to take on Xi. Comical. Yes, communism will win. I mean, we've actually, you live in a really interesting time where socialism, they almost were able to stop it because the technology was just not quite there yet to do the kind of planning and collect the kind of data that they needed to do socialism. And the Soviet Union was just isolated enough and just wrecked enough by World War II that the capitalists were able to contain it. But they fucked up. They allowed the Communist Party of China to develop China. The largest nation in the world in a gigantic landmass that's rich as fuck, they allowed the socialists to keep. And then they allowed them to develop it into an industrial powerhouse, which makes the United States at its absolute heyday look like fucking the Seychelles right now, okay? The Seychelles. Like, we are nothing. Like, America at its absolute prime can't even hold a candle to China today as far as manufacturing goes and infrastructure development. Like, we've never been anywhere close. So you're living in the time where it's already over. Like, the turning point has already happened. And the only hope capitalists have is some sort of internal collapse in China. That's self-inflicted. But we have to, we have to live through this period of denial. I'm saying they will do the same. Why? Why? First of all, China is really powerful, but it's not powerful enough to take on the entire world. And the difference between the United States and China is China realizes that. The United States doesn't. The United States has the fascistic delusion that it can take on the rest of the world. China doesn't have that. China is very powerful, but it's not more powerful than the rest of the humanity combined. Is the purchasing power of factory workers in China sufficient? No. In fact, if you ask what the Chinese Communist Party put out what their goals are, and the answer is they want to raise the standard of living of Chinese people by increasing their consumption. That's their number one priority right now. Can you imagine Donald Trump coming out and being like, my number one goal is to raise your standard of living? He doesn't even say standard of living. He doesn't give a fuck. It is human nature. The ruling Chinese class would do the same if they were in America's position. It's not what you're talking about. Is specifically what China's government is designed to prevent. And the way you prevent, like, why isn't everybody corrupt? If everybody's self-interested, why are some countries more corrupt than others, right? If it's just human nature to be corrupt and evil, how come some countries are more corrupt than others? And the answer is institutions and norms. You basically create a society where if you get caught being corrupt, it's so bad for you that people stop doing it. And so that's how we do it. We create a society of transparency, of mutual suspense. We hold each other in awe. We have accountability. We have transparency. And therefore, but you also make being a good person beneficial. Right? If you make the rules and you make following the rules good for you, and you make breaking the rules really bad, then you can push people toward virtue and away from vice. The United States of America has lost that ability.
Memes run the world.
This sounds like a really interesting video. We might have to watch this. But right now we're watching the stock market crash again. Oh my Lord. Tesla, 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 Tesla. Can you imagine being the person who bought Tesla at $273 yesterday and you thought you were cooking?
For years after COVID. And so I feel like you do have a mean reversion trade with those airlines, which I always felt were more rentable than investable. And they've done very good if you've rented them in the right periods of time. But I do think it's more of a gauge on an economic slowdown. And also this narrative, which I know there's some data points about foreigners are not going to travel to the U.S. It's like in real life, we love European people and they love Americans, the individual people. It's at the government level, at the White House, and that where you're seeing.
I don't know. I would only take issue with that based on only anecdotal stuff from things that I've heard directly from some of the people on this program who travel in and stay in hotels that are popular with international travelers, and you have the managers telling them directly, we're seeing far few visitors now from Europe, or a person who manages a restaurant in New York City where you get a ton of international clientele at the higher end saying, you know, we're slower than we normally are. So I think what you might not expect could actually come to fruition, only adding and accentuating the fact that, you know, consumers are going to be skittish, and they were already skittish by sentiment. By virtue of where sentiment has been recently. The argument was, well, soft data doesn't necessarily bleed into hard data. We'll believe it when we see it. Okay, you take the stock market down 20% on the NASDAQ and you do what you're doing in the market now, and you think that boosts consumer confidence? Really?
It's a negative wealth shock.
By the way, the Dow right now is down 1,900 points. 4.7%. The S&P is down 5.75%. It's a give back of 313 points. Now, after yesterday's historic.
Okay, calm down.
Okay, this maybe is something to build on. Technicians looked at the market, said, you know what, I think there's some more room to go. Given what happened yesterday, and then if you cancel out part of that with today's move, for example, the S&P week to date is only up 1.3%. The Russell's negative by 1%. The Dow's almost flat, and the NASDAQ is only.
Chat. We're up 95% today. I think I may have to take some off the table here. We may have to take some off the table. Because I feel a Trump tweet. I can feel a Trump tweet being written right now. All right, hold on. I don't know why.
Big elephant in the room. We got to fix that.
Well,
and we have 90 days.
That's not just an elephant. That's like a herd of elephants in the room.
Of course it is, Scott. But that's the point. That's the reason why the market's not up again today, because the realization that we're not out of the woods and we still have 10% universal tariffs to deal with as well. So yes, this 90-day end right now, like pause, is good, but there's still a lot of questions to be answered, and that's why we have to get through that 90 days, China, and earnings. And that's why the market's all over the place.
One of the things I came on Tuesday, and one of the points that I was trying to bring out is, like, we really haven't gone through an earnings season with a massive number of CEOs pulling guidance for the next quarter of the full year. And that's like my concern. Now, we actually saw something interesting. Delta pulled guidance the next day after I said it. So did Walmart. Both of those stocks traded up.
Right.
So I don't really know that that's definitely a negative catalyst, but it's something.
What are you talking about?
If you're expecting to hear guidance,
people were shorts covering and freaking out yesterday. The market is shit. The economy's gonna crash because we're tariffing China 145%. This is rational sell-off. Okay, I need to stop arguing.
What's going to happen this year? Why would I place my next buy order thinking that I do?
But if you think about the cap-like companies like a Google, a Meta, Apple definitely not. Why would they pull guidance? Why would NVIDIA pull guidance, right?
Great question. They're advertising businesses.
Right? They've been exempt from the export controls. There may be a deal between the U.S. and China on one of the H numbers to let them come in. And so I do think there's companies that will be very strong, will have strong guidance. I promise you, like Instagram, Facebook, those things are so addictive. People are going to continue to advertise on those. And so I think that's where you pick your spots. And everyone was so negative on the big tech stocks. I think that's going to be a place that you have cheap stocks that are growing and that are cap-light companies that I think people will look to. Like to Steph's point on a Meta, it looks pretty good here. Sell calls on it. It's on a premium.
Christina Partsenevelos, I think she's at the NASDAQ. Speaking of, hi. I mean, you're right there, and you have a front row seat to this reversal today, which is just down.
So, chat, my puts are currently up 100% in one day. So I'm trying to figure out whether I just want to take the 100% single day return or if I should just take the money that I invested in off the table, or I should just take the W, because I could feel a tweet coming. I can feel a tweet coming. You know, I really, really hate Tesla, though. And I do think it is dog shit. Oh, am I up even more now? Am I above 100% now? Huh. Is it crashing
specifically
faster
at the
than I can
NASDAQ?
sell?
AI spending sustainability is another huge theme. Yes, Google's sticking with their $75 billion in 2025 CapEx commitment. Amazon CEO, I know you guys talked about it, Andy Jassy, told CNBC this morning they're not going to cut back on data center spending right now, but he did hint that AI won't be as expensive in the future. So what does that suggest? NVIDIA either needs to get cheaper or face viable alternatives. And then let's not forget Microsoft. They already started pulling back on some data center spending. We had that news yesterday, specifically with Ohio. So you put all of those vulnerabilities together, and we're looking at a potential growth slowdown, and that is troubling for the big tech companies that have been bankrolling on AI's expansion, guys.
Christina, thank you very much for that, just helping us layer in what's really happening. Let's show the 10-year yield as well, because an intraday, if you could, please. Because as you see the 10-year yield elevate to the highs of the session, you're seeing stocks move to the lows of the session. Same sort of move you had yesterday. The 10-year is still green. It's at 435. It may not be as high as I think the 451 it got to yesterday, but it is significantly higher than it was pre-so-called Liberation Day. So that's worth keeping an eye on, because that is not an optimal thing to have happen. I should also, we should have this conversation of what really changed yesterday. They reduced the numbers in terms of tariffs down to 10% from numbers that most people thought to begin with were absurd, that were gained through a formula that nobody believed in or thought was valid.
ChatGPT.
Okay? Seriously. So we took numbers down to 10% from numbers that people thought were already ridiculous. Okay? At the same time, we raised the number to 145% on China. And we're surprised that the market is reacting the way it is now. What do we do with that?
Okay, Chad, here's what I decided to do. I decided to take the money that I bet off the table, add a little bit extra, just to bank a W, and I'm going to let a couple of those contracts run for a little bit longer. Because I could just feel a tweet coming. You know what I mean? I could just feel a tweet coming.
Or nowhere neutral on the Fed funds rate. And then Christmas Eve, they were like, just kidding. And then by January, they embarked on the first of 3 rate cuts. And the rest is history. 2019 was a wonderful year. Stocks have been very cheap going into it. Multiple expanded earnings grew. We all lived happily ever after. That is a possible outcome to all of this. And we should just remember, once the Fed does decide that it's needed, it does provide a huge tailwind to stocks. And that's why it's hard to get too negative here.
Okay. I wanted to go there.
And then you've got, all right, let's do the Fed first.
Let me do this real quick. No, because when you say it's hard to get, too negative from here, I think people learned their lesson, Steph, to some degree yesterday of trying to get too negative with a president who thinks he can flip the switch, so to speak, at a moment's notice. And, the pivot that he did, what happens if President Trump comes out at some point, today, tomorrow, who knows when, if it ever happens, and says, I just had a productive call with President Xi, and we agreed to have negotiations and whatever. What does this market do?
Explodes 15%. Explodes higher. You have to get
all
resolution.
It takes is that
you need resolution. You need some sort of resolution and clarity with China, so that at least we could figure out what the numbers are going to mean to companies and to earnings. And right now, we just don't have that at all. But I'm not good enough to time, Scott. I'm looking at what you guys tend to look at more than me. The relative strength on the S&P 500 got to 23.
Yeah.
23. That's the 12th lowest in 20 years.
This guy's Mr. RSI over here. You're preaching.
He is. I know, but the fear and greed index got to 2. You know the last time it was a 2? COVID. And the great financial crisis, it was 12. So to me, and the VIX, you mentioned the VIX, it had the 3rd best week ever last week. So I'm looking at investing and I'm thinking long term, like Brenda, like all of us pretty much, right? I'm not going to get the bottom, Scott, but when I see these best in class companies go on sale across every sector, right? You can pick and choose. I'm not going to catch the bottom. I mean, I feel horrible on a day like today because the stocks that were up a lot yesterday are now down a lot.
It's funny.
Today.
I have a lot of stocks. I have a lot on my screen. The only thing I have green on my screen.
Gold.
No, well, I don't have gold like in front of me. By the way, gold's been down too. Speaking of no place to hide, is the VIX.
The VIX. Right.
Every single other stock on my screen.
You don't even need an agreement with China. An announcement.
I didn't even say an agreement.
An announcement.
I just said we had a productive call.
Yeah.
What does this market do?
That's it. I'm gonna meet with President Xi, who I love very much. We have a great relationship. We have a great friendship. That's all you really need, and that's why it's really dangerous to be like, oh, the market's down 18%. Let me get super negative now.
Right.
I get it. We could go lower, and again, I'm the first to say, technically, this market's in a really bad place. But because it's so event-driven,
yes,
and because it's not yet a full-blown cyclical recession, we're not there.
No,
and we could get there, but it's not guaranteed. So while it's event-driven, I think staying nimble and accept there are going to be horrible days like this, incredible days like yesterday. You either want to be a day-to-day participant in that swing trade, or you want to think long-term and just say, I don't know if this is the right time, but this is the right valuation.
What about speaking of valuations of things like the financial?
Oh, man. Sometimes, chat, sometimes you just make one move and you double your money because it makes no sense. And then you say, hey, I doubled my money. That says a good thing to take. And you just take it. Oh, that's so funny. Is it enough to buy a hot tub? Yes, it is. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny.
Diamond, and the message over the last many quarters has been the consumer is still pretty healthy, still have a lot of deposits.
So that's a laugh on Twitch. You can literally spell his laugh, ha ha. I don't even say ha. I don't say ha. The IMF Financial Stability Report on China that was published this year came out really favorably in retrospect to their 2017 report. Yeah, well, of course. They're way better than they were in 2017. Mike, the TikTok channel and Discord is live. Oh, that reminds me, chat. If you see if you make any fan edits of me, or you have if you have a TikTok channel that's part of the Mike Industrial Complex, I would like you to post your things in the Discord. We have where is it at? Where is it located? Where the fuck did you put it? People are never going to find this. Oh, Mike TikToks. Okay. It's at the top. It's in the Central Committee. Right below fan art and emotes is Mike TikToks in the Discord chat. So I've noticed, I've been going on TikTok and I've noticed meetup Saturday where we're going to figure that. Let me figure that out. Let me figure that out. I'll tell you tomorrow. Okay. I'll tell you tomorrow. So if you see anybody posting Mike TikToks, go ahead and throw them in there and we'll review them on stream. I want to start boosting the Mike from PA Industrial Complex on TikTok. And I'm starting to build up my TikToks as well. You pulled out at the correct time, did I? Did Tesla start bouncing right after I sold? Amazing. Yeah, I didn't end up getting the. I ended up selling all my contracts, chat. I ended up just ducking out because I could feel a. I feel a Trump tweet or something coming. So I was like, I'll just take like a 90% gain. I'll just take a 90% gain. The only channel in your Discord that's worth posting to is #pets. That's a lie. That's a lie. Mike, how much did I gamble? Not that much. There is Mike was right, and then there is Mike was precognitive. Where is the spice melange, Mike? Oh, I know. Are you up 4 or 5 digits? It's upper 5 digits or upper 4 digits, not upper 5 digits. That would be crazy. The stock market is crashing. The VIX is back up to 50. We are living in a weird time, man. We are living in a really, really weird time where the S&P 500 is a shit coin. It's bouncing more than Bitcoin is. Oh, hell yeah, chat. We have a new emote. Woke of the Day. The Woke of the Day award. Now, this is an emote. Thank you, Non-Gloria. Speaking of TikToks from Mike from PA. In my announcements, we post my new... I've been posting shorts.
But on the American side, there's an assumption that, hey, we can strike bases on the Chinese mainland if there's a war over Taiwan, and the Chinese would never dare escalate because they worry that we have more nuclear weapons than this.
How the fuck would the United States win? There's no concept of American victory. The United States is going to be extended to 5,000 miles off of the coast of California, and American battle groups are going to be under a hail of hypersonic missiles and drones, and they're going to win? I guarantee you this guy is just like paid for by the Koch brothers or some insane fucking group. What's his name? This is the type of shit that gets on liberal networks, by the way. He continues to advise offices within the U.S. intelligence community and the U.S. Department of Defense. Yes, exactly. He's a Nazi spy, basically. Unrivaled. Why America will remain the world's sole superpower. By most measures, America is a mediocre country. 7th in literacy, 11th in infrastructure, 28th in government efficiency, 57th in primary education. It spends more on healthcare than any other country, but ranks 43rd in life expectancy, 56th in infant mortality, and 1st in opioid abuse. More than 100 countries have lower levels of income inequality than the United States, and 12 countries enjoy higher levels of gross national happiness. America sucks, but we spend a lot on the Pentagon, so that means we're going to remain the winner. The United States is several times wealthier than China. This is not true. The United States is wealth in financial assets. China is wealthy in productive capability and infrastructure. In an actual war, paper money can't shoot fucking bullets. This is what liberals see on their televisions. My God. Incredible stuff, folks. Incredible stuff, folks. The idea that we are more powerful than China is only true if you value the ability to do a genocide in Gaza higher than you do the ability to build 30,000 miles of high-speed rail for your population. Which is more important for power? Bombing a defenseless people at a concentration camp, or being able to move trillions of dollars of wealth across your country at the blink of an eye? For me, it's the moving it across the blink of an eye. To move that wealth. Incredible stuff, chat. Incredible stuff. Trump explaining that his friends made billions yesterday. Yeah, we talked about that. We saw that. All right, where were we? Let's go back to watching some Bernie Sanders. And then we'll look at the stock market again.
Senator, there's been a recent movement to minimize or erase the identities, experiences, and histories of diverse individuals and communities. Given these efforts, what specific legislative measures, reforms, and actions can we as educators advocate for to promote the inclusion of diverse perspectives and histories within academic curriculum?
Look, I happen to believe that if we are going to do what we have to do, we have to understand history.
Come here real quick.
We have to understand how we got to where we are today. I believe that very strongly. And there are some aspects of American history that we should be enormously proud of. There are some aspects, like in every other country on earth, we should not be proud of. But to try to push slavery or racism or homophobia or sexism under the rug and say they never happened is a disservice to the kids of this country. All right, if we go forward, we've got to know our own history, our strengths, our weaknesses. So again, I think you have the right. I want educators in this country to be able to educate our kids about all aspects of American society, not just the positive aspects.
Some of the
all right, chat. I might have to be AFK for a minute or two, just because I have like landlord visit thing happening. They're doing some sort of work on the place, so I'll be AFK for a little bit.
The specific examples are quite remarkable. The National Park Service, the Pentagon, at times have scrubbed their websites of references to Harriet Tubman, Jackie Robinson, the Tuskegee Airmen. At one point, the DOD took down pictures of the Enola Gay because it had the word gay in it.
Yes. I mean, can you imagine how crazy that is? Enola Gay was the plane that dropped the A-bomb. And the word gay was there. They erased it.
Some of these moves have been reversed, but President Trump's also now going after the Smithsonian, accusing them of, quote, divisive race-centered ideology. Do you think the administration is trying to whitewash American history?
Of course they are. I mean, that's what I just mentioned right now. Look, to be a strong nation, we have to be a well-educated nation. And to be a well-educated nation, we have to face the truth. And the truth is, as much as Americans, we should be extraordinarily proud of. You know, when I give speeches, I should have studied this harder when I was in the 6th grade. But you got people back in the 1790s who wrote a constitution. You know what? That was an extraordinary document for the 1790s. Talk about separation of powers, which Trump is trying to do away with. So there's so much in our history that we can be proud of. But like every other country, Anderson, there's a lot in our history that we should not be proud of, that we should learn from. You know, slavery and racism and sexism and homophobia. All right, that's nothing to be proud of. But we learn from those things. We overcome them. So do I think what he is trying to do is to say, oh, all things were wonderful, we're always the greatest country on earth? Yeah, that's the kind of direction he's going to.
This is Elizabeth McInturff, an attorney here in D.C. She's a Democrat. Elizabeth?
Hi, thank you. President Trump has been publicly attacking private law firms, namely those that have historically represented the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, or have pursued lawsuits into him or investigations against him, including into January 6th. What should Congress be doing to protect the legal profession's independence from political retaliation?
Okay, well, thank you for that question, and it's something I am very, very concerned about. So let's take a deep breath and try to see where we are. And I talked a little bit about economics. We're an economy where working families are struggling while the very rich get richer. But what Trump is doing right now, and I would hope very much that my Republican colleagues and Republicans all over this country understand it. You know, men and women put their lives on the line, and they fought and sometimes died to defend democracy. And democracy means you can disagree with me. I'll give you one example of what's going on in this country. You correct me if I'm wrong here, Anderson. Trump, I'm going to get to the law firms in a moment. Trump, in his movement toward authoritarianism is attacking, he's sued ABC, sued Meta, suing CBS. He is now investigating PBS and NPR. He has called this station illegal, correct?
I'm not sure about the illegal part, but
This and MSNBC, illegal. You're now, by the way, in Trump's world, you are in an illegal network. What is all of that about? Now, getting back to the issue of law firms. In America, what we have is a system of justice which says that you are entitled, basically entitled, constitutionally entitled, to a legal defense. The idea that the President of the United States would threaten and harass attorneys and law firms that defended people he did not like is a major step forward toward authoritarianism. And by the way, some of these big law firms, was it Paul Weiss is one of them? One of the biggest, caved in. We look to these law firms who have hundreds of well-paid lawyers to defend the Constitution, to defend the rule of law, and these guys, big law firms, who often, by the way, defended Democrats, they were more interested in getting millions of dollars from their lobbying or whatever the hell they do in Washington, D.C., making huge amounts of money than standing tall and defending the Constitution. They should be ashamed of themselves. And when Trump is out of office and others gain power, I hope we do not forget the cowardice, not only of these law firms, but by the way, you got major universities like Harvard and Columbia. These are some of the great universities in the world. And yet, out of fear of losing their grants, and I understand that, they got a lot of money there, they are willing to change their curriculum to bow down before Trump. You add all of that together, the attack on law firms. You have Trump, for the first time in history, saying to a judge, oh, you ruled against me. I don't like the decision you rendered. We're going to impeach you. That's not America. What our Constitution is about is a separation of power. Executive, judiciary, legislative, an independent judiciary. You don't threaten and intimidate judges because they rule against you. That is a movement toward authoritarianism. And I would hope very much that not only Democrats and independents, but my Republican colleagues, we can disagree on all the issues, but for God's sake, let us not become an authoritarian country where one guy one guy assumes all of the power. That is not what people fought and died to create in this country.
If somebody gets fired from their job at a federal agency in Washington, tries to get a law firm in Washington to represent them, what law firm is going to take that risk if they know there's a president who's willing to go after them and destroy their business with all their corporate clients?
You got it. You got it. I mean, it is...
The universities, I just want to put some numbers to what you're talking about, because the administration canceled $400 million of funding to Columbia, froze $790 million to Northwestern, $1 billion to Cornell. The universities say this is going to threaten life-saving studies, research on significant things, even significant to national defense. Former President Obama said last week the university should stand up even if they lose the money. What do you think they should do?
That's absolutely what I just said.
Stand up.
He's right. Look, what is the function of higher education? What's the function of education in general? It's to try to pursue the truth. Now, your truth may be different from my truth, but that's what the function of a higher education is. So to tell their students, oh, by the way, we're going to cave in to an authoritarian type president in order to protect our money is a gross mistake and a disservice and a very bad lesson, I think, to teach their students. So what worries me, I am seeing major media corporations like ABC, like Meta, caving in and reaching settlements. CBS offended the president because they did an interview with Kamala Harris that he didn't like. Really? No kidding. You've done interviews with me that I didn't like. I didn't quite sue you, you know? But that kind of intimidation of media, of judges, of universities, I hope the American people wake up and demand that whatever your point of view, I don't care what your point of view is on this or that issue, this is deeper than that. This is whether or not we remain a free society where people, if they're going to threaten to sue you, are you going to have people on your show who are going to be, in disagreement with Trump? Or do we now all bow down to our new king, President Trump? That is not the kind of nation that I think we want to become.
We'll be right back with more from Senator Bernie Sanders.
Okay, I'm back. I'm back, folks. It's a very nice landlord, we changing our air filters on their own. How isn't that nice, chat?